Today, we become legends.
Today's Titan Talk discussed known issues for OB12, confirmed Mercury as the next god coming to the game, discussed a potential Pro League return, and a whole lot more. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss my future recaps, but let's jump in. First up, the action camera has defaulted on for existing players, which wasn't the intent. They are working on a fix for that, but for those that have had it changed, you can set it back to normal at the bottom of the gameplay settings menu. They're also aware of some players having their settings on the whole being reset, but this has affected a lot less people, and they're also working on fixing that. The extra ban did actually manage to make it into the update, sort of unintentionally. They didn't actually plan to have it in this build, but it appears to be working as normal, so they're just going to leave it in. They're also aware of Ganesh's invisible pillar in the middle of his ultimate and are working on a fix for that. Bot names showing as ellipses is a known issue that they have a fix for, they just need to deploy it. The auto login feature not working on consoles is something they're aware of as well. They're also working on a fix for the diamonds page showing the incorrect numbers. They intended to make it like Smite 1 where it shows the base rate of diamonds plus the bonus you get for buying a larger pack, but instead they made it show the full amount including the bonus plus the bonus on top of that, which they're aware can be misleading, and they're working on getting that fixed ASAP. Kilgoon also addressed the Mercury leak and confirmed that he will be the next god coming to the game in 2 weeks time. They'll be giving more information on him and the other god in the roadmap on Wednesday's show though. That's it for known issues. Let's move into the Q&A section. Someone asked about the classic skin tokens as they haven't been removed from their account nor have they received their legacy gems, and Isaiah said it's sort of going out in waves and they should have everyone done by the end of the day. Someone mentioned that number summing isn't working on some abilities like Agni 1 or Ares chains, and Kilgoon said he thinks that's probably because there's a timer on it where it doesn't sum if the damage happens too long after the most recent tick. They could look into increasing that time though to make sure all abilities that make sense to sum will be summing. There was a question about the new Q screen and when it will come to the game, as well as a new friend screen at any point, and Kilgoon said the Q screen should be in the next update if everything goes to plan, but a friend screen is a little harder to do due to certification on consoles, but they are looking into making improvements to that screen without reworking it entirely. Hey, just jumping in here once again to promote the Switch. I'm going to be playing the new patch live, checking out some of the new stuff that is coming to the game. So if you want to watch me play it with the new stuff, I'll be live on Twitch as this video goes out for a few hours afterwards. I'm really bad at promoting my Twitch. People say they have no idea that I even stream and stuff like that. So if you want to come check it out, I'd appreciate you. You can come over, say hi, talk about the patch, all that good stuff. But yeah, back to the recap. Someone asked if they have any plans for the non-bundle, non-traveler prisms, as they are pretty expensive to buy individually. And Kilgoon said he thinks 600 diamonds is reasonably fair, but the plan to going forward is to do a lot more Prism Travelers, which should help players get them for cheap if they're around when the Traveler is in. The plan, of course, for those afterwards is for them to go direct purchase at the normal price. Later in the show, someone followed this up by asking if they could make a discount for the other Prisms by a small amount after you buy your first one, and Kilgoon said they probably don't have the tech in the game to do this right now with dynamic discounts like that, but he likes the idea and will forward it to the team. Someone asked for an update on the improved God lobby screen to show teammates and the presentation of it in general, and Kilgoon said he's not actually as interested in the pedestal style from Smite 1, and he thinks they could do better than that, like maybe with your own character big in the front and your teammates hanging out in the back like some other games do. It's something they're talking about, but no ETA on when it will be coming. There was a question of if they would drop multiple gods in one update as they get closer to the release of Smite 2, and Kilgoon said not in the immediate future as they are currently releasing gods as they're ready and wouldn't want to hold back on releases for a few weeks just to release several in one patch. They technically could work on gods faster, but it would be at the cost of everything else they could be working on, like items, map changes, quality of life, skins, new player experience, all that kind of stuff. Someone asked what would need to happen for a competitive league to come back to Smite 2, and Kilgoon said they are supporting community tournaments with cash prizing at the moment, like Smite Prime, but in terms of a full SPL style league, that would be something they would only even start considering after the full release of the game. There's more important things for the game for them to work on right now in their eyes. Someone asked if they have any data on if new players aren't sticking around because of bad experiences with other players, and Kilgoon said that definitely can be an issue, but he thinks a much more prominent reason is stuff like losing streaks, where you like lose 10 games in a row after you just started playing and basically give up. Some games prevent this by giving you an almost unlosable game if you're on a big loss streak, but Smite doesn't do this. It just tries to create the most fair match each time. However, he said that when new players do leave and never come back, it's usually long before any of this stuff even happens, so their focus right now is on improving the new player experience for their first few hours of playing, as that's when the majority of those who leave the game will stop playing. Someone asked if they'd be open to doing more game crossovers as opposed to other forms of media, and Kilgoon said yes, they'd definitely be open to that and enjoy doing the RuneScape and MTG crossovers, but their focus right now is not really on those kind of things as they take a lot of work, and the new players they bring in aren't super likely to stick around at the moment, so they'd probably look into doing crossovers later on when the game is more new player friendly. There were some questions about mage solos in chat, and Kilgoon said it seems to be a bit more of a high-end rank thing than a whole game thing, and they are keeping an eye on it, so they'll see how this update shakes out. Someone asked how God Builder has performed and did it meet their expectations, and Kilgoon said they're generally pretty happy with how it's gone, and it has helped a lot in removing some of the big knowledge burden from the game. There was was a question about death animations and if they'd ever bring them back, as they added a lot of personality to the gods, and Kilgun said he generally thinks death animations were a net negative for the game, as they could be very confusing in combat, especially some of the more out there and flashy ones. He thinks they would be better adding things like lobby animations than death animations specifically, though he did agree that it can sometimes be hard to realize that someone's died, and they could look into having more audio feedback or something like their health bar shattering with an animation instead of just disappearing, stuff like that. Someone asked if we could get the option to see our ping in-game, and Kilgun said maybe, but there are a few issues with that. A lot of modern games use a different calculation for ping that cuts out some elements of the formula and makes it look like your ping is lower than it really is. So the question would be, do they update to that standard, or do they keep it like Smite 1 and potentially impact player sentiment about server quality because that ping number is higher than it might be in some other game they play? Someone asked if we could get the treasure choice system back, where you get your choice of an item from a chest after a certain number of rolls, and Kilgun said they have been talking about that internally and it's something they could do, but they are also trying to move away from chests a little bit in general for Smite 2, more towards stuff like wandering markets and travelers, as they feel they're more fair to players. They did say that almost every skin is available direct purchase if you want that though, with the exception of some stuff like wandering market travelers. They'll be available for direct purchase later, of course, but there are some chests like the music and announcer pack chests that currently have no method for direct purchase, so I do think this will be a good thing to add to the game if they can get around to it. Someone asked about hit markers, and Kilgun said they are working on this and plan to add it, as he feels it would improve combat clarity if you can get a visual hit marker and a little sound whenever you land a hit on someone. Someone mentioned that some of the older Smite 2 ported gods had some of their sounds updated, while newer releases haven't, and Kilgun said this is actually intentional, as players rely a lot on instinctual reactions to sound cues, and it wasn't very well received when they changed them drastically. There were a few questions about lighting, and Kilgun said he agrees that lighting is one of the bigger things that they could look at that would make a large difference to how the game looks and feels, and he generally thinks the current lighting that tries to emulate Smite 1's lighting actually isn't that great, and they have considered moving more in a direction that leverages UE5's lighting systems a little more, at the cost of not looking as much like Smite 1 in terms of lighting, but that would be a fairly sizable change and a bit of a risk of alienating players that like the way Smite 1's lighting was handled. They did see a little bit of that in the early alpha, for example. The lighting was very different back then, and some people liked it and some people didn't, so it would be a bit of a risk to change this, but it is one of the most impactful things they could do to how the game looks. As of course, that's not just like a texture change somewhere, that is the whole map will look radically different. And finally, someone asked if gods coming to the game are based on their class or their role, and Kilgun said it is based on their role, so like for example, they wouldn't bring Ao Kuang in place of a mid laner, he would come in place of a jungler. But that's everything discussed on today's Titan Talk. Don't forget to subscribe to catch Wednesday's recap with the god roadmap, and I'll catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.